New at 4 in today's Community Focus, will the state take legal action following that massive data breach last month? Here to answer that question and more, Attorney General Peter Neronha, thanks for being here.
Hi, Kim.
So before we get to that question, we heard from our colleague Ted Nesi earlier. He's up at the State House. State of the State is at 7 o'clock tonight. What are you hoping to hear from Governor Dan McKee in his speech?
Well, candidly, hopefully a plan for solving some of the acute problems we're facing as a state. As you know, I pay close attention to healthcare. I imagine we'll talk about that. You know, healthcare being first and foremost, among them homelessness, which ties into healthcare, of course. We need to improve our economy to get people onto more commercial insurance. Really, some kind of an articulation of a careful, thoughtful plan to move us forward. Education's another. I feel like we have not advanced the ball very much, and hopefully the governor can set us on a path to getting there.
And of course, people can watch that live at 7 o'clock tonight right here on Channel 12. Speaking about some of the issues that you just mentioned, what are some of your legislative priorities going into the new year? I know we touched on this a bit at the end of 2024, but what are you hoping happens up at the State House? Yeah,
first and foremost, I think what I've learned over the 6 years now that I've been in office is that the office has tremendous capacity to help Rhode Islanders, and you can see it in all kinds of ways. And we've talked a lot about that. We were asking for, and got from the General Assembly, enhanced investigative authority to do the kind of work, say, that the U.S. Attorney is doing vis-a-vis CVS, to get out and investigate proactively and then decide whether to bring a case. The governor vetoed that legislation. That was really a strike against Rhode Islanders. We need that authority to do our jobs better, and that's my top priority, get it back through the General Assembly. I don't see any problem there, but hopefully convince the governor this time that a strong, robust Attorney General's office isn't a threat to him or anybody else, and what we do is serve the men and women and children of the state.
I know healthcare is a top priority of yours, as you mentioned. Specifically, I want to talk about Prospect. They announced that they're filing for bankruptcy. They're in the process of selling 2 local hospitals. How does this bankruptcy filing impact that and the healthcare of Rhode Islanders? Yeah,
well, look, first of all, we can't afford to have those Rhode Island hospitals close. We've been sounding alarm bells over these hospitals and their financial condition for a long time, 3 years. In the immediate future, nothing changes, Kim. There is a transaction that we've approved for a sale to Centurion. If that sale is completed and the bankruptcy judge approves it, I think the former is more of a lift than the latter, then at least for the foreseeable future, a couple of years, I think things will be okay. If for whatever reason that Centurion deal doesn't go through, then these hospitals are assets in a bankruptcy court in Dallas. And what they are at that point is a means of satisfying creditors, people whom Prospect owes money to. And so at that point, they're just something that can be sold. The question then becomes, well, who's the buyer? Centurion was the sole prospective buyer for these hospitals. I think we need a plan, a backup plan, for what happens if the Centurion deal doesn't go through. Because if it doesn't, if we're not prepared to act then and find a buyer for them, frankly, be proactive about it the way Massachusetts was, there is a possibility that they could close. But for the immediate future, when I'm talking about the next several months, Rhode Islanders should be assured that they're going to continue to get good care there, and everything will remain in place. But the reason why we're paying so close attention to it is because things are moving very quickly and there's some real concerns there.
Something to keep a close eye on for sure. I want to get back to the topic that I mentioned at the top of our conversation, which is, will the state be taking any legal action following that massive data breach last month where hackers stole the data of hundreds of thousands of Rhode Islanders and then leaked it online? Is there any recourse?
Well, sure. There is recourse against Deloitte. The hackers themselves are very likely beyond the reach of my office.
And Deloitte, of course, is the company that oversees RI Bridges, which was
That's right, that runs it for the state effectively. And so, or ineffectively in this particular case, at least as it comes to cybersecurity, from where we sit right now, the question becomes, you know, what do we learn over the next weeks and months? It's one of the reasons, you know, this investigative authority I'm talking about, that the governor vetoed, fits this situation perfectly. You know, that's how we get information under compulsion, meaning you don't have a choice to give it to us, so that we can figure out whether there's a claim there or not. The bottom line, though, to cut right through it is, did they do everything they reasonably should have to protect this information? And if they didn't, there will be a recourse. And it's not just you know, letting people know that there was a breach, it would be substantially beyond that.
And just quickly before I let you go, there's always a lot of investigations that are happening, that are continuing with your office. Anything that we should expect to see the results of in the first quarter of this year?
Yeah, you want me to break things? You know, Kim, I suspect that our diocese report, long awaited, will be early, late this quarter, early next quarter. Certainly while this legislative session is in session. We're nearly done with that. I think that is going to be, well, frankly, quite lengthy, but also very significant. You know, there are some other things that are moving through the system. You know, some of the work I think is extraordinary. So, for example, we brought suit against a company that was requiring application fees for housing. You know, really, I think precedent setting. And in fact, today in the Wall Street Journal, the FTC is thinking about bringing an action. Well, we've been ahead of the FTC. This is an example of the office really expanding its authority and willingness to fight for Rhode Islanders. It's why the governor's veto is so disappointing. My hope is that he won't do that again this coming spring.
All right, that's all the time that we have. Attorney General Peter Neronha, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Kim. Good to be with you.